name's Jenny Sieck, and you might know me. I do intuitive work and counseling sessions, intuitive guidance sessions, and I am really honored to speak tonight about dreams. Dreams are probably my biggest passion. They're probably the thing that set me on a journey of psyche and change and connecting with my intuition in a way that when I was really young I couldn't have imagined. And probably they've been the things that have made me more aware on a deeper level of who I am and how to connect with other people. So I'm really honored that you decided to come here and hear about dreams tonight. So what are dreams? Dreams are these amazing things that come to us in the middle of the night that we are caught up in, that we're caught up in every way that we can be sensorially, right? We're caught up in them, we see these wonderful visions and have these wonderful, amazing feelings and experiences and hold energy in a way where it almost feels real to us in a way that's different than our waking lives. So dreams can be magical, they can defy reality, they can be scary, they can be nonsensical, they can be comforting, and they can be transcendent. They can be a lot of things. Dreams tell us about what energetically we're afraid of or about what we desire. So dreams are, depending on where we are in our own expression and understanding of ourselves, dreams can be very scary or dreams can be very enlightening and magical. And I would suggest to you that often they're scary because we live in a culture that's afraid of the unknown, afraid of the expressions of our intuition and our deeper feeling sense. So I'm going to talk tonight for the first part of the night about dreams that are scary and why they're scary and how to move through those energetic patterns in ourself to connect with what Jung called the transcendent function. I just call it the magical function, much simpler word. But Jung believed that we were innately meant to live out, or as our birthright, we were meant to connect with this magical, intuitive, alive function, and that was supposed to help us to lead the life that we were meant to lead. Unfortunately, because of some of our own families of history, families of origin stuff, and our own energetic blocks, our tendency is to sometimes hold fear in the dream. And in my own experiences with dreaming, I experienced this quite a lot. Dreams show us where we struggle. They show us things that are important. So anything that comes to us in a dream is important. It's not something to push away from. Our culture kind of suggests that we're supposed to have this mentality that's so wonderful all of the time. But if the dream brings us something that's difficult to integrate, what? Yeah. The dream brings us something that's difficult. The dream brings us something that's difficult to integrate. That means we need to deal with it. And that's why it keeps coming back in our dream, to be dealt with. So I'm going to put a little bit of a graph or picture up on the board here. So this is the realm. Oop, that one doesn't work. This is the realm of the unconscious, right? What we're a little less connected to in our lives, what we don't have a way to express or know is going on for us. As we gain more awareness about the difficult edges in ourselves, we gain more awareness of what's going on in our unconscious. These are not the best pens, but we'll work with them. This is our conscious, our waking life, our ego self. And when I say our ego self, that's important because there's a tendency to think in our special community that ego is a bad thing. Ego is a very necessary thing. We need it as a strong construct to make good choices in our lives, to have good boundaries about things. But when our ego gets fixed or static, or we need to have something come out a certain way, that's when we're a place in ego where it can be troublesome. So our conscious is what we do in the daytime of our lives, right? As we become more self-aware as people, there's an overlapping function that happens here, right? This is the awareness function, right? So in the dream, when we have a dream that's scary, What happens usually is there's a polarization of energy, right? There's one thing that's scary, and there's you, the dreaming ego. And what typically happens is there's a tendency to either want to fight the thing, move toward it, or run away from it. That's the fight or flight scenario, and anybody who's had any experience with trauma in their lives understands the configuration of that scenario. Now, it's not an issue that we have a tendency to take on one role. It's an issue that it disempowers us and we become static in that role. So, let's see, where am I going from there? So scary dreams, yeah?
That we always make the same choice?
That's exactly what I mean. That we often will make the same choice in the dream. So in my own life, when I was having these scary dreams, I would find that I was always running away, always running away. And the other thing is, this energy in Psyche that takes the form of all of these different phantasmical symbols is just trapped energy in the psyche. That's all it is. And when we're sleeping, it becomes animated. So whatever we're holding energetically is what becomes animated. So scary dreams are ego-based dreams. They're dreams where there's me and whatever that energy is. And what happens is that energy gets fixed and becomes polarized, and we become static. We do the same thing in the dream again and again and again. What happens when we do this is, we wake up in the middle of the night, we can't sleep, we have insomnia, we're just scared. So, and often in these dreams there's a complex narrative or story where there's a lot to win or a lot to lose, right? So whatever this energy is, whether it's a victim or pursuer, right? Do you understand that kind of? What happens is that there's a lot to win or a lot to lose. We feel like we're going to get hurt, we're going to, something's going to overtake us, this sort of thing. They can be really macabre, that sort of thing as well. So what they do is they hold trapped energy for us until we resolve it. So by allowing and noticing our experience more deeply. So instead of staying in this static role, what we do is we start to go into the dream and say, if I weren't afraid or I weren't angry, why is this energy here in my dream? What does it have to show me? What does it have to teach me? That represents deepening awareness. That's where the unconscious function, right? The stuff that we hide from, that we don't know, our shadow, and the conscious begin to overlap. And we develop increased awareness and also increased empathy. So, and it also, what it does is it moves this trapped energy in Psyche to a place where it has more fluid expression. So what that means is we feel after we've done this in the dream, and I'll tell you what you do, but when we do this, that we have a more magical connection in our nature, we have more energy in our body, we have more lightness in our spirit. Right, okay, so in the dream, here's what I did, and I don't know that this is the choice I would make at this stage in my life, but when I would have these scary dreams, I would try to contain all of the energy. I would go into the dream and I would say, do your worst. Act out against me. Do your worst. You have something to teach me. I'm going to contain all of that energy and let that happen. What happens when you do that is there's no polarization of the energy anymore. There's no static energy. There's nothing to be afraid of because you've said, come on in, right? Okay, the other thing you can do is you can confront the energy. You can go into the dream and you can say, look, this is my dream. How can we work together? What is it you need to say to me? Why is it that you're coming across as so scary? What are you getting out of that experience? How can we bond and work together, right? So those are the two choices, either containment or bonding in that way. So the way that you know that the energy has moved from this trapped energy to this more magical place in Psyche, this more transcendent function, is that the energy that was so scary doesn't show up as scary anymore. Just a really quick story. I would have a lot of the typical menacing bad man kind of dreams, and I would be really, really scared. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, didn't know what to do, this sort of thing. Started saying, okay, what do I do? So in my personal life, I was not making the best choices in terms of romantic relationships, dating people who weren't so nice, this sort of thing, dating people who were really sarcastic and that sort of thing up in their head. And so what I did was I did what Jung calls working with active imagination. And that's where we take the object and we bridge the unconscious to the conscious realm, right? So I got this little doll of the Count, right? And I put it on my computer, the Count from Sesame Street. And I would look at it and I would talk to it and I would say, what do you want to say now? Something about engaging that energy in a different way, in a non-scary way. What happened in the dream was as I worked through it energetically, made better choices in partners, that sort of thing, chose nicer people. In my dream life, I just had this little animated Count running all around and he would go 1, 2, 3. I wasn't scared anymore because the energy had been released. And that's what I want to get you to see, that all of this is just unconscious trapped energy. And when you can go into the environment and say, I'm not going to play anymore quite this way. I'm not going to play this rigid role of either running after and attacking or retreating. The energy shifts. So the job is to contain the energy or confront it and befriend it. So when we do that, what happens then is the energy that was isolated, the parts of ourself that were separated, the unconscious, the shadow, which our tendency, and often I think sometimes the reason people don't do a lot of dream work is because the one little thing that they can remember is scary or unnerving. And so they just go, I'm not going to look at that, right? That's the shadow part. Well, we know that the shadow part needs to be expressed in some capacity. It doesn't need to run roughshod over everything, but it needs to have a little bit of a voice. When that happens, our unconscious and our conscious are bridged, and we have access to increased awareness. That's when we start to have fun in our dreams. That's when, you get to swim and fly and be in these ornate, beautiful rooms and just be in this space that's wonderful. And that's what Jung believed. Jung believed that we had a right to connect with that transcendent or magical function. So much that we would be able to figure out in the dream what it was we were meant to do in our waking life, right? This is the individuation process. The idea that as we move through this trapped energy and this separation or this polarity between expressions and have this increased awareness, we have increased agency and power in our lives. The other thing that happens when this happens is when you encounter energetically that same energy in your waking life, you don't have the same response to it. There isn't the tendency to want to judge it or run away from it. There's a deepening curiosity. And even maybe I would say an empathy or like, how do I become a little more resilient? How do I become a little more able to advocate for myself? So the good part of that energy, the powerful part, we get to connect with in ourselves. Does that make sense? Cool, awesome. So, okay, so we shift too. And when we're not scared and judgmental, we can engage the energy differently. So I do something called dream imaging. And you've all heard of dream interpretation, right? This kind of idea that you open up the book and this symbol means this sort of a thing. Now, I want to talk a little bit about archetypes. Archetypes are the capacity for an energy to express a certain story. So we have the archetype of the mother, maybe the archetype of the good mother. We have the archetype of the world or Gaia, right? And these are cross-cultural stories that we're destined to tell in our lives. But these ways of looking at dreams only get us so far because they're very, very, they're either one of two things. They're either very literal, like a frog means that, I don't know, it's going to be cold for 4 months. I mean, they can be either very literal and very narrow, or they can be so wide as to not be very useful sometimes. So with dream imaging, what this does is it allows us to go deeper into ourself. Our tendency in our culture is to exist above our head. And so what we do is we look at something and we say, this image means this. Well, that means that the image is trapped, and the image, like the energy that shows up in the dream, is trapped. Well, the image has a story to tell us about who we are. So if a tiger shows up in your dream and a tiger shows up in your dream, it may mean something entirely different. The job is to get in touch with what your tiger is telling you. And that is about getting in touch with your felt sense. Eugene Gendlin wrote a book called Focusing, a very popular thing in the 1970s, this idea of felt sense. Felt sense is about kind of talking yourself through the image as you go to a deepening awareness in your body and you say, tiger. Is tiger here? Is tiger here? Where do I feel tiger? What was my tiger doing? Was my tiger hanging out with a bunch of other tigers? Was my tiger getting ready to encroach on a group of antelope? Was my tiger have its back to a tree? So what you want to do is you want to go so much deeper into that symbol than just the surface. Does that make sense? And felt sense. The experience of felt sense is not logical, it's not literal, it's intuitive, it's feeling, and it's symbolic. So all of those layers of understanding what the symbol are not literal layers. That's why you can go in a dream and something can happen that causes a causal relationship with something else that makes no sense. And you go, of course, because that's felt sense. And that's why when you start to engage in this magical journey in your waking life, it isn't about saying, oh, I had a dream that came true. It's about knowing what the feeling in the dream felt like for you. And then waiting till you feel that way in your waking life and going, this feels right. So it isn't literal, and what happens is we lose that understanding of that energy by making it literal. That's our ego that says, oh, it has to show up at this time, at this place, and be this way. And that's why sometimes we miss these magical connections because we're not aware of the fact that we need to come into a place of receiving that awareness, that image, and looking for it in terms of how we feel it in ourselves. And the other thing you can do with this felt sense, with this dream imaging, is you can notice which chakra it's connected to. You can notice where energetically it fits in terms of your chakras. So what emotional energies it evokes for you, what stories it may have connected to it. Okay, so when we do this magical work in our waking life, what happens is we just become aware on a deeper level. And these two places become connected in psyche so that we have a deepening awareness and a deeper experience of felt sense. So, do people have questions? Sure.
Do you explain one more time about how it's not supposed to, for the interpretation of a dream, it doesn't mean something literally, but then you're supposed to feel it. I guess how does that work with the interpretation? I mean, obviously you don't want to trap it, but you don't want to be too loose. So can you speak a little bit about finding the right?
It's a feeling response. You know how when you you go, oh, I want the strawberry ice cream. I know that's what I want, you know? Or I know this person, I want to get to know better. It's a feeling response. It's not a thinking response. Does that make sense? The other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is when we move into this more aware role in psyche, or this more kind of amped up place, if you will, the dreams will shift. What energetically happens in the dream realm really shifts. And we can really miss that because we're a culture that is very into these complex narratives, this very kind of high throttle hero's journey, right, where there's a lot to win and a lot to lose, success and failure and big dramatic issues. What happens when we move into this place in psyche where we're just much more curious and aware, kind of like a Buddhist or an aha kind of place, if you will, what happens is the dreams, the narrative is stripped back. And often just one symbol will show up. And we'll think, I'm not having dreams at all. What happened? I was having all these exciting dreams. And now I just kind of feel this sense of peace, and there's this rose that's opening, and I'm just looking at it. Well, what that means is that we're asking to connect with the symbol on a much more pure level, on a much more present-centered level. And when that happens, It represents this shift in psyche. And what we'll find often is when we start to go out in our waking life, we won't be as dramatic in our response to things. We will be much more just kind of taking it all in. So, yeah.
What about this in the Bible, about the dreams in the Bible? About the prophet Daniel, about Joseph? You know, we got dreams. It's nothing new to us. It's been going on before our time.
Absolutely.
We realize that what about an innermost being, you know, our spirit is an innermost being, and that controls our dreams.
That's really well said. Absolutely. Our innermost spirit does control our dreams.
Right.
And that's how we can know energetically where we're at in psyche. The other thing I want to say about this is there's nothing wrong with going into the dream and having this fight or flight configuration. We'll have it again throughout our lifetimes, no matter how much work you've done. You know, you turn another corner or something, there's an obstacle in your life, and you're in that place with ego where you go, whoa, what's going on? And then the big dark figures come out in the dream, and then you're running after him or you're running away from him. We all do this. This is the dance that we do. So there's nothing to feel like you're looking on a continuum and you're here or you're here. No matter whether you're Mahatma Gandhi, I'm sure he had dreams where he was like going, I'm running around, you know. That's how you figure it out, is by engaging it energetically. So.
It's like you make a cake of spiritual vanilla.
What?
It's like you can make a cake of spiritual vanilla.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the other thing I thought about talking about a little bit was how to get a little more in touch with your dreams, because some of this, if you're not a very active dreamer, can seem like, wow, you know, I'd really like to just be present in my dreams a little bit more. So one of the things that you can do first is you can pay more attention to your dreams. You can decide that there's a relationship between your unconscious and conscious. And you can decide that there's a gift of awareness by figuring out what's in your unconscious, what it is you're feeling, what images you're drawn to, what kinds of movies you like. I mean, it's really simple. We make it really complex, put all these fancy words on it and stuff, but it's really just what we're drawn to. You know, if you know that you like the chase 'em up movies, then you know that there's something that catches you in that energy and that makes you come alive and speaks to you. If you like the really placid, you know, magical stories, you know that that speaks to you. So that's right. So what you can do is you can just decide that you want to be more aware. That's one thing you can do. Then you can imagine what that awareness would feel like. And you can notice when you're walking through your life when you get a particular image, when you're caught up in a series of words that someone says, or a word really tweaks you, and you can go, wow, there's energy around that. Right? So that's a way to get to this place of deepening awareness. Then in terms of the actual dream work, you can pay extra attention when you remember a little snippet of a dream. And you can go, I'm going to write this down. And you can create a ritual out of it where you write it down. And then if you sit in a place where you just go, I wonder what I dreamt after that. And it doesn't really matter what you dreamt after that. That's what's funny. That's where this non-literalization piece is really important, right? What matters is that you know what you'd write next. Because what you'd write next is where the energy is. That's where the imagery is going. And it's probably what you're dreaming about and not remembering anyway. So that's a way to tend the images and the energy of dreams. Another thing you can do if you want to go into a specific place in the dream is you can create a ritual around that while you're falling asleep. You can take some stones or light a little candle or something like that and kind of hold the energy there as you're falling asleep. And then when you get into the dream realm, ask to see those objects. And it will remind you about what you were doing, remembering the dream. And then just be patient with yourself. You know, just be patient with your process and see what shows up. But as you start to become more interested in this idea of engaging energetically what's in your unconscious, the more your unconscious will start to speak to you. So.
Like, okay, so you were saying, like the unconscious speaks to you or whatever. So when he was talking about the bit about the Bible and how some of those dreams were used as a way of like prophecy or whatever. So like, would that be like the collective unconscious?
That's a really good question. I'm doing a contest right now on my Facebook page. I design jewelry, and I'm doing an image contest, preparing for the Universal Light Expo. And I'm really excited about people's most inspired images. Just them sharing them. It's just about them sharing the imagery, because I do think that happens. I do think what happens energetically when we kind of collapse the time-space continuum and start to look at things on a quantum level is that when we hold this higher energy, this higher expression, we are able to work with an energy that's not just held by us, but it's held by a group of people. So absolutely.
Those guys were speaking about, prophets I was talking about, and even Joseph, they were interpreting dreams that the king had dreamed. The king wouldn't understand them. They were warned about a lot of things. They wouldn't listen, but they had these dreams, and they had to have somebody interpret to them what it meant.
Yeah, and I think our culture too is really into this idea of fixating on what truth is. I think older cultures, more indigenous kind of nature-based cultures, were much more comfortable with this idea that there was faith in what something meant, and that what defined what something was much more elastic. So that if someone had an image that they were working with and something happened that felt right, and then people started to tell a story about how it did happen, that story sometimes held more weight than what factually happened, And I think it's a byproduct of our culture and all of our, 3,000 internet pages, and I mean, it's even hard to figure out what the truth is when someone puts an article that they didn't tell you where it came from. It's hard to know what the source is. So how useful is that information? I would suggest to you that on a lot of levels, this kind of information about getting in touch with your unconscious and this deepening empathy and deepening intuition is more useful than all this supposedly factual stuff that doesn't help us feel more inspired or more connected, especially as we age, right? Because in terms of our cultural conditioning as we age, it's harder and harder sometimes in that framework to feel good about where we're going. We don't have stories about that, about wise people who figure things out as they age. But I think that what this helps us do is connect with, with all the different ways that people can show up in our lives and all the different energies that we can get caught up in. So the bottom line is, are we more fear-based? Are we more creativity or curiosity-based? So the more that we connect with this deepening awareness and the deepening place of our intuition, the more we become less fear-based. The more we feel connected to each other.
Have you ever heard of sleep paralysis?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
You're right between being
Yeah.
conscious and unconscious.
Yeah, I actually, when I was in...
Can't move nothing.
Yeah.
You're aware of your environment. But you can't
Yeah,
move.
actually that happens literally. The pons in the brain makes it so that you literally are paralyzed, and then you're aware of that paralysis. I also think a lot of times when you have those kind of dreams, it's because you haven't resolved something or worked it out, and that's kind of like the trickster energy showing up and going, you don't have any control over this, you thought you did, kind of a thing. I used to have those dreams all the time in high school, and I had to just talk to them and work with them a lot because they can be very, very scary. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess maybe it's possible that tendency to be paralyzed is more of an extreme configuration of that fight-flight, or playing one role against another. So there's the victim energy, and then there's the perpetrator or whatever. And so sometimes that configuration of the paralysis can be that whole energy there, So, but it definitely represents a lack of not knowing what's going on, or being out of control, or being tricked, I think.
When I was young, I could hear people in my house. Like when mother and sister being in make up the bed, I could hear them. I couldn't move.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Have any of you other guys had that experience? That's no fun. It's no fun. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's kind of what I had to share tonight. And if anybody has any other questions, that's great. And yeah.
Anything about is there any anatomical, biophysical relation to, like Scrooge said, that dream was an undigested piece of bread or cheese. I used to work at the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 91 was left there. And since that time, I'll have dreams that sometimes I know where I am there. But other times there'll be dreams, other situations, and they'll always be in the context of the building, of the organization, of the lobby, or someplace in the building. And whatever it is, it always shows up that context comes up.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that for years and years and years. Different scenarios, nothing to do with maybe what I did there, but just it's like someone comes from outside and they come in. This is the room. They're coming outside. And they're talking about something. And they're talking about something else. But it's always in this environment context, and I can't quite figure out what.
Is there something that you hadn't resolved in that environment at all? Or is there something that evokes in you? That's another really good question.
It was a very comforting technical environment. It was something, maybe it's a safe place.
Mm-hmm. Maybe, yeah.
And when you talk about not controlling dream, but you're saying I'm going to do something and not do something. You're saying that when you prepare yourself so when you have your dream, you can respond in the dream?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you do that? What's the mechanism?
That's called lucidity. Some people are really lucid in dreams. They're just naturally lucid. And that happens when there's this crossing over the unconscious, the conscious, there's more awareness. What will happen is your waking life and your dreaming life will kind of morph into one. And when that happens, you'll start receiving information from your dreams in your dreams. And you'll start thinking about your waking life. You'll start thinking about your dreams when you're awake. There's a bridging functioning going on. So instead of saying, this is my real waking life, this is what's real in my life, this is what's fantasy or unimportant, you say, oh wow, these two energies, my waking life and my dreaming life, are dialoguing with each other. And they're helping me understand who I am better. And when you do that, those two functions are bridged.
But how do you're not controlling it while you're dreaming?
Well, that's a really good question, actually.
Can you prepare anything? So, okay, let's say an odd case. I want to dream about sailing tonight.
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't happen. Tomorrow night, I'm going to dream about sailing, and it doesn't happen. Damn it, I'm going to do it for a month. And maybe on the last day of the month, gosh, I dream about sailing. I mean, can you share your dreams?
Oh, you absolutely can. There's a whole movement of folks called lucid dreamers who, some of them are very into that idea of having something happen in your dream and manifesting it in your dream. I'm a little leery of that because I think when you start going, I want to dream about this, all of a sudden your ego is getting involved in your dream. And so the goal is to allow the energy to shift into the dream place so that you are expectant and excited about whatever shows up. But it's not bad or anything by any means, and it does work. It absolutely works. Yeah. Yeah, and it's just about noticing it more deeply and investing in that awareness more. So.
Do people ever do MRIs or some kind of brain scans to observe,
I'm sure there's
dreaming or brain scan and kind of correlate the brain scan with the dream and see if there's any kind of matchup with where this is going on?
Yeah, there's actually a sleep study place at OSU. I think that you can go and you can sleep and they'll watch you sleep and see what your REM patterns are and all that. I know they work with people who are narcoleptic and They work with people who have, I think, incubus dream attacks, which is a really extreme version of this lack of control kind of dream where you think that you're awake and then you're not awake and then it becomes scary and you become paralyzed. And I know that people at the sleep center work with that specifically.
I got experience with astral projection, like I'll be sleeping having a dream, and all of a sudden I tell you when I'm going to go up, and I go up. And that bird looking down at it, and I saw it come back down, I come back down. But it's in a dream state though. Right.
Yeah, I used to have that happen a lot in high school too. I remember I would get really excited about it when I would go to sleep because I'd be like, I wonder if I'm gonna have another one of those dreams. And I'd be like maybe this high above my body, and then I'd get scared. And then as soon as I got scared, you know, so that fear thing, you know.
Telling everybody,
Yeah. Sure.
How do you know, like you were saying, that you go, like he was saying, I want to sail, or go sailing or whatever.
Yeah.
And you were saying, well, that might be an interject here of ego, but how do you know, like, let's hypothetically say that he had a question and he wanted an answer and he was going to go into his dream to be shown the answer.
That's different.
Is that different?
That's different because you're not leading with the image. Whenever you lead with the image, that's I would say when you lead with the image, what you're doing is you're going, it's got to show up this way. This is what I want, right? But when you say, I don't know what I want, but I'd like some guidance or some insight, you don't know what's going to happen. So you're not leading with the image or the expectation. You're inviting the energy to show up. It's just a different subtlety. So, and there are a lot of people who do the lucid dream. That's the thing. Oh my gosh, I gotta pitch something to you guys. There's, I gotta, because it's the greatest thing. It's called Dream Talk Radio. I don't know if you guys are on the internet. It is a whole channel of programs about every kind of dream work you could ever imagine. It's just Dream Talk Radio, and it's wonderful. But anyway, I just had to mention that. I got all excited. I didn't want to forget. So, yeah.
how do you know it's real though?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know it's real what's on there?
How do you know? Oh, how do you know it's real? Well, I guess you just got to decide that for yourself and feel what feels right for you. But it's a bunch of people from every single school, shamanistic, Jungian, lucid dream theory, everybody. It's really a cool channel. So.
Do you take notes on your dreams?
You know, I did do that for years because when I was a young adult, I was struggling with some stuff, and I actually was struggling with some really severe nightmares, and I would wake up and I literally was being pulled back into the dream. I would have this energy circulating around my sacral chakra, my second chakra, and I felt like I had no energy in my body there. I could barely get off the bed. It was like, okay, I got to do something. I can't just keep doing what I'm doing. So, and what happens there, that's what Jung calls the idea of the gift of the symptom. Like I had to deal with it. If I didn't deal with it, I was going to be in pain. So, so what did you just ask me? I'm sorry, I just. Oh, yeah. I did. So I started taping all my dreams. And I started doing this kind of playback dialoguing with each symbol in the dream and saying, what are you here to tell me? And I would speak for each symbol in the dream, each thing that showed up. And I would track when there were shifts, because we know a lot about when we're changing, when there are shifts in what we're dreaming, right? When the energy is different, when things don't express as scary and express as more energetic or more positive, we know that we're starting to shift. So I kept these dream tapes for 7 years. I had 300. I had tons of them. And I would go back, and when I did my thesis work, I listened to a lot of them, and I pulled out dreams that were really central to my own life story and worked with them energetically and figured out what I was supposed to learn from them over time. And then I decided I wanted to do this work, so I pulled all the tapes out, and I decided I'm not going to do it directly for me anymore, but I'm going to kind of give it as a gift to other people. So I had kind of this ritualistic ceremony. Now I still do some, taping dreams and that sort of thing, and noticing my dreams, but not as diligently as I did when I was younger. And now it's kind of a thing where I just remember my dreams automatically, or I can track the symbols. I can go, okay, these 3 symbols showed up, don't have time to deal with it now, and I can pull up those 3 symbols and connect it together with the other parts of the dream. So just because it's something that's important to me, so I don't have to be so, so I don't have to do it all the time. So, yeah. So. Well, I think that's all I've got. I think that if anybody else doesn't have any questions, I'm going to pass out some cards and wrap up. So thanks so much for joining me tonight. And I do a radio show, which I do want to tell you about. That's called Inner Voice Intuitive Hour. It's on www.withinsightsradio. And it's dealing with all this metaphysical stuff, dealing with Jungian stuff and symbols, and this deepening awareness, this journey that we're all going through. So I have guests, and sometimes I do a show that's in-house. So hope that you'll check that out as well, and I'll pass out some cards, and thanks so much for coming.